John Heyman gives us the latest Juan Soto update, plus the boys at the Mets pod give us their Mets pitching strategy for the year. We got a couple videos to react for you next on MetCast. What's going on, Met fans? As always, I am Ray, and I am here to bring you the latest of all Mets news. If you like our content, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. Leave your feedback in the comment section. I make sure to get back to each and every single one of you. Questions, comments, concerns, debate. I love it all. Let's use it as a forum to express our ideas and opinions. But let's get right into it. I want to start off with the guys at the Mets pod. They get into a little bit of what's going on with the New York Mets, their pitching strategy, what they think of the Frankie Montas signing, and then we'll continue to get into the other stuff that we have. But let's take a look.
Montas is a very hard move to judge in the bigger picture because we're sitting here and we don't know what the Mets rotation is going to look like. But if Montas is the number 4 or 5 and they're betting on fixing some things with him that Milwaukee started to fix after he left the Reds, which the Reds' history of pitching in recent years is dreadful.
Now, let's not forget, once he went to Milwaukee from the Reds, his KP9 went absolutely through the roof. He stopped throwing a couple pitches, started throwing some of his other more dominant pitches a little bit more, and that's what helped him. And let's not forget where David Stearns comes from. Obviously, he is a former Milwaukee Brewer in the front office, so maybe he sees something with Frankie Montas there.
Then you feel pretty good about it. And I have full faith in the Mets as an organization to figure out how to fill out the rest of this rotation because they've shown the willingness to do things like that. So it's so funny. I laugh at it myself as a Mets fan. The reaction to this kind of move in a previous time, you'd be like, oh man, like if this doesn't work, we're in big trouble.
Let's be honest, in a previous time under the Wilpons, this is our entire offseason. That's what I think he's alluding to.
Trouble. Now you sit here and go, 1, I trust the guy that's making the move.
100%.
2, if it doesn't work, well, they're probably going to make a lot more moves that hopefully do. And 3, we just saw this exact plan work last year, so Stearns gets the benefit of the doubt.
I understand giving David Stearns the benefit of the doubt here when it comes to Frankie Montas, but I will say it worked for Severino and it worked for Minaya. You are 2 for 2. What are the odds you're going to go 3 for 3 in reclamation projects? This guy's ERA was almost 5. I mean, there is no getting around that. At least Severino had the pedigree. He was once great with the Yankees and then came here. And they saw something in Sean Minaya. But again, it's a 1-year deal with an option. So if he does well, he's going to leave us just like Minaya, just like Severino did. And if he stinks, we're going to be hooked with him in 2026 for another $17 million. So it's a big risk in my opinion.
Out that it could work again.
Stearns is a very disciplined man. I will give him that because it'd be, as you said, Connor, so easy for him to walk into this job. He was in Milwaukee. They wouldn't let him pay nearly anybody, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. And Steve Cohen is basically like, whatever you want to do, man, we're fine. Like we can do it. So anything that crosses your mind, he has that discipline. And I think people will probably be like, he's just always trying to find, the kind of lucky bounce back guy. And I think that's largely going to be a lot of his philosophy. I don't think it's going to be.
I don't like that philosophy. And I may be different. I know a lot of you guys might not agree with me, but we are supposed to be operating at the absolute top of the market and finding bounce back guys throughout a pitching rotation. I understand last year the Dodgers won the World Series with a ton of guys out, but for me, that's the anomaly. Pitching is what wins in the postseason, typically. And we need to get a horse in here. That's my opinion. We need to get that frontline horse where we say, game 1, we know who's going. We don't know what Sang is going to be. He was out practically all year last year. Peterson, is last year what he is, or is it the previous 4 seasons with us where he was awful? Tyler McGill, we know what he is. And Frankie Montas has a 5 ERA. There's a lot of work to be done in regard to this pitching staff, in my opinion. Maybe you think different.
Exclusively how he operates. As you said, Connor, he's not opposed to adding an ace. he was down to offer Yoshinobu Yamamoto $325 million last offseason.
True.
And if the Dodgers didn't come up to the Mets number, I think the Mets would have had him. So Stearns was not opposed to going after pitching. I think he is just very selective as far as the long-term deals. As you mentioned, these guys, unfortunately, with the way the baseball world works, they enter free agency and their age starts with a 3. And they've thrown a bunch of innings throughout their career, and now they're trying to cash in based on what they did. And the history of it is just so poor. Like it's so few and far between that these contracts work out. That
you can almost name all of them. The Garrett Coles of the world. I mean, think about it. If the Yankees can go back and not sign Carlos Rondon, are they doing it? I think so.
You could literally name them. That's how rare that it occurs. So I think Stearns, it's going to be his philosophy. I don't think he's going to stray from it all that frequently, though he will say, and he has said in press conferences, there's exceptions to every rule. Being steadfast is not a good way to be either. But I just can't see, like Corbin Burns and Max Fried to me feel like the polar opposite of what David Stearns is.
100% agree. We were actually talking about that earlier on our Twitter space. By the way, if you're not following us, we are doing an unbelievable Mets giveaway with our friends at FOCO, a 3-tier New York Mets City Edition bobblehead featuring Lindor, Senga, and Pete Alonso. I'll be sure to put the photo in this video. If you're not following us over there, all you got to do is follow us and retweet the post, and you're immediately entered. So head over to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and give us a follow over there at MetCast Pod, the same as my name. But I totally agree with him. Think about this. David Stearns doesn't like paying guys over 30. So now you're going to give a guy Corbin Burns 7 or 8 years when his metrics are already showing that he might be on the slightest of declines, and Fried's already close to his mid-30s. I mean, it doesn't make sense unless you can get him on a 2 to 3 year deal. Now, there was a report earlier today. I forgot who had it. I'll see if I could pull it up for you guys. But the Yankees just had a call with Fried. Supposedly went well, and they're scheduling a second call. The first one was a Zoom call. The second one, I don't know what call it's going to be, but they're going to schedule it. So it looks like he's at the top of the list for the New York Yankees. Here's John Heyman's latest update in regard to Juan Soto. Let's take a listen.
Soto, Yankees. I mean, look, he loved the clubhouse. I do think he liked the roll call. Did he love New York? I think he liked New York. I do think he loved San Diego. So, I'm not giving New York as much of a home field advantage as some people say. Certainly it is on the East Coast. His family lives in Dominican and also in suburban Fort Lauderdale. So maybe the East Coast has a little bit of an edge, but he'd certainly love the clubhouse in New York. They have a very good roster. They have the wherewithal to do it. Big market, obviously, biggest revenue in baseball. And I think the Yankees are very much in this at this point. I mean, going in, I think we all felt that the Mets, with the even deeper pockets of the owner, Steve Cohen, had a big advantage, and maybe ultimately he's going to write that check and say whatever it takes. And I've heard rumors to that effect of whatever it takes for the Mets. We'll see. I mean, I think the bidding is pretty high, as we've seen. It's already been reported that the team.
And remember the earlier report earlier on in the season where supposedly Steve Cohen was willing to go $50 million above the highest negotiated price that he got from another team. Whether or not that is true, I guess we'll find out very shortly.
Teams are over $600 million. The bidding is over $600 million, well over, I'm sure. And, I mean, is he going to bid $800 million? I don't, there's got to be a limit at some point. And the Mets certainly did a great job last year to get to the NLCS. Give them a lot of credit. Still in New York, which I think he liked New York, so certainly not going to hurt him that it's New York. Obviously, Steve Cohen made a big impression, from what I understand, at the meeting, as did David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. A lot of things to like about the Mets. But
that's pretty much where you're at in regard to the Juan Soto update. Nothing crazy changing. We are hearing that it's most likely going to happen before the winter meetings, potentially Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I'm looking forward to that. That's what Andy Martino said within the next 7 to 10 days, and he said that a couple days ago. Now, with regard to John Heyman, I think the less information that we have as fans, the better for us Met fans. And let me tell you why. You heard the Yankees have upped their offer potentially from 550 into the 600s. The Red Sox were just quote unquote gaining momentum. You know what you haven't heard? You haven't heard the Mets are upping their offer. You haven't heard the Mets are gaining momentum or the Mets are in hot pursuit of Juan Soto, because the New York Mets don't leak. This isn't the Wilpon era. This isn't Sandy Alderson. David Stearns and Steve Cohen do not leak their information. So when I hear reports saying that, nobody hears much from any camp, anybody's looking for any little crumble, that's a good thing in my mind. We've heard that I was listening to Mike Francesa earlier today. He said Juan Soto's been the apple of his eye for a long time. That's the player he covets. And if you're a billionaire like he is, the richest owner in this sport, you go out and get him. And that's why he thinks he's probably going to end up with the New York Mets. We got another video here. I will say this. I don't want this player. This player is being rumored to be traded. Unbelievable glove, declining, about $75 million left on his contract. I don't want this player. You'll find out who it is right now.
Let's stay in St. Louis, right? There's been too much chatter at this point to bring him back. So I expect he will be dealt somewhere. I'm going to say Yankees, Mets, Boston, maybe Toronto.
I do not want Nolan Arenado. No, thank you. The last 3 years, he's clearly on the decline. Still has the great glove. He's willing to go to first base here or there. No, thank you. That would be an old-time Mets move. No.
Maybe Seattle, Houston, Detroit, Angels, Dodgers. I got a long list of potential third basemen who could be third base openings. And, we'll see where Bregman goes. We know that Houston's in on Bregman. They want to bring him back. They made him an offer. We shall see. Obviously,
But that's the update in regard to Nolan Arenado. I do not want him. And the last thing we have bookmarked here, we get it from Benny BKG per John Heyman on Pete Alonso. I'll always say one thing about that. Landing Soto would help the Mets keep Alonso. I have been saying this all along. If they sign Pete Soto, Pete comes tumbling afterwards. To be honest with you, I think regardless if we get Juan Soto or not, the New York Mets are going to re-sign Pete Alonso. Steve Cohen knows what he means to this fan base. He's homegrown. It just seems to make way too much sense. Pete wants to be a New York Met. He's told us time and time and time again. Now it's going to cost a very pretty penny. And maybe all this process teaches Steve Cohen and David Stearns a little something. Take a little advice from the Braves. Sign these guys while you have years of control under them. I mean, you've seen it with guys like Austin Riley, Acuna, Albies. All these guys have signed while they're young, and they got them a lot cheaper than what you would on the open market. So these are the updates that we have for you today. Again, friends, if you have a comment, please leave it below. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel so much. I'll be keeping you up to date on everything. And head on over to X. Enter our giveaway. It is absolutely 100% free. Brought to you by our friends over at FOCO, the 3-piece New York Mets City Connect Edition jersey bobbleheads. Until next time, as we bring you more content, take care.